This is the Red Line, and I am your host, Jimmy Red. Thanks for tuning in this week, episode 5. Hope you guys enjoyed episode 4. So, episode 5, we're going to have more NFL. Week 2 NFL and week 3 college. Also, scenery looks a little different this week. I'm not wearing the same hoodie. Wearing something a little different. Figured I would change it up a little bit, give you guys something different to look at this week. So, we're going to start this off with NFL this week. We're going to switch it up. We're not going to start with college. NFL, pretty exciting this week. There were some good games, conference games. We'll start it off first off with the Titans and the Jags. It's a pretty good game. AFC South matchup. Obviously, Houston lost to the Jags last week in week 1, and the Colts are struggling. Colts don't have a starting quarterback. So these are the two teams you're really looking at to be the top-tier teams as of right now in the AFC South. It was a pretty good game. I wouldn't say it was great. It was good all the way up till halftime. It was pretty close. It was pretty much a dead heat. They looked both identical. Then halftime rolled around, and the Texans said, "This is our game, see ya," and they went to the next level. I mean, it was crazy how the Titans just took off from them. The rushing game went nuts. Derrick Henry had 14 carries, 92 yards, and a touchdown. Delaney Walker rushed for a touchdown. First one in his career. A tight end, Delaney Walker, rushed for a touchdown. And then they gave one to their fullback, Justine Flowers, a fullback. So they ran for 3 rushing touchdowns with different running backs, and they put DeMarco Murray on the sideline, and he stood there and pretty much watched the game. Was the reasoning because Derrick Henry was better? Because he's that bigger, stronger back? Or was it protecting DeMarco Murray? I think it's a little bit of both. I think Henry's getting those reps to become that next number 1 running back there in Tennessee. But I also think they were trying to protect DeMarco Murray at the same time. You don't need to go hurt him when he's still healthy. And we all know that, sorry, I had a piece of hair there. We all know that he is likely an injured player. He's been hurt a few times in his career. So we want to try to keep him as healthy as possible. So I respect that decision, but I also see that they're trying to build Derrick Henry. The O-line. Their O-line looked pretty good. That helped get the push, helped get the run, helped establish it, helped it get set, and it also helped Marcus Mariota. Marcus Mariota had a pretty solid game. He was 15 for 27, 215 yards, only 1 touchdown, and he threw an INT. It's not too bad. He threw the INT, maybe tried to force it, maybe he didn't. Not really sure what happened there, but he still scored a touchdown, had a pretty consistent day. Didn't go too great on yards, but he had a consistent, solid day for a quarterback. I would take that out of a quarterback playing in division away from home. On the other end, Blake Bortles didn't have such of a great day. Last week, didn't throw any interceptions. He had amazingness. And this week, he was not the same Blake Bortles as he was the week before, against a better defense in my mind. Bortles had 223 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. 2 of them. Last week, he didn't throw any. So, was this because he was forcing it, because he felt like he had that ability in week 1? Probably so, because this defense is definitely not as good as Houston's. Houston's probably got the number 2, not the number 2, at least one of the top 5 defenses in football, in my opinion, because you got all those other ones out there. You got Dallas, you got Seattle, you got Denver, you got the Chiefs, and I'd put them right there. So I'm thinking their defense is pretty top tier, but I'm not going to say it's the greatest one there is. Leonard Fournette, their running back, he had a pretty good showing again. Not bad. He had 14 carries, 40 yards, and a TD. He's a rookie. The O-line has got better since last year. Last year was terrible. It didn't matter who you had in the backfield. They weren't running. Blake Bortles had no time to throw the ball. At least he's got time to throw the ball this year. And Leonard Fournette has time to hit the cuts and make the gaps, and they can block for him. So that's really, really, really good. The Jaguars' biggest problem, though, was they had turnovers. They couldn't hold on to the football. They had 3 turnovers, 10 penalties for 99 yards. That'll hurt anybody's day, the 3 turnovers. You can have 750 yards, but if you have 3 or 4 turnovers, there's a good chance you're going to lose that game because you're not putting points on the board. Rather, it's 3 or 7. You have to put something on the board to win a game. And they couldn't hold on to the football to do that. That's where they lost the game, was definitely in turnovers. My takeaways from that game are the Jags. D needs to come up and step up a little bit. They played good the first half. The second half, it didn't stay around. Their offense needs to find a way to hold on to the ball. Leonard Fournette looked good, but they got to find a way to not lose the football as much. Blake Bortles threw 2 of the interceptions. Blake Bortles needs to get himself calmed down, establish who he is in the pocket, and throw the ball with confidence. He doesn't need to just play around back there. He's got the time now because he's got an offensive line that gives him more time to throw the ball. That's just incredible how they can go from amazing one week to terrible the next. The next game I want to talk to you about here is the Pats and the Saints. Man, Pats won that game by big margin there, 36-20. It's pretty big. A lot of people expected it to be a lot closer, especially with the 2-tier quarterbacks that were in that with Brady and Breeze. I expected it to be a little bit closer. Brady went crazy, especially after the showing he had in week 1. He came out blazing. Brady threw 3 touchdowns in the first quarter. Not half, quarter. It's the first time he's ever done that in his career. He threw for 300 yards in the first half. The second time he's ever done that in his career. The Pats scored 30 points, 30, in the first half of that game. They came out with a vengeance. They knew what happened in week 1. They went back to the drawing board with a long week. They had 10 days between game 1 and game 2. They got everything figured out and established, and they came in ready to play football. Brady was fired up. And he said after the game, he says, I still think I left some out there. If Brady left some out there, wow, the NFL better watch out because Brady's got it going on. His numbers from that game were astonishing. He was 30 for 39, so he missed 9 completions. Threw for 447 yards and 3 touchdowns. If he left some out there, that guy's going to throw for 500 yards and 5 touchdowns, and he's not going to look back. And if he does that, I don't think there's any team in the NFL that can beat them because that's incredible. Gronk was the leading receiver in that game. He had 6 receptions, 116 yards, 1 touchdown. His longest one was 53 yards. That was a really good play. Brady hit him while he was running across the field in a cross route, in a cut route. And when he hit him, he came back across the field and just looked amazing running the football and got in there. But he left the game early with a groin injury. He's listed, I don't want to call it day-to-day, but they say he's likely to play next week because it's not severe. So that's a good news for them considering he's their strong receiver right now, and they're already injured on the offensive side with players being out. You don't want to lose Gronk. You lose Gronk, you're in a whole lot more trouble, and you don't want to do that. But Brady, being the mastermind he is, he'll find somebody to throw that football to. They got Philip Dorsett now. They also picked up Brandon Cooks. So I think they'll be fine. The running game was a little better this week. Gillislee had a little bit more effect into the game because of the running game opened up the pass, I think, a little bit more this week. Gillislee ran 18 times for 69 yards and a touchdown. His 13 was his longest. That was pretty good. The team rushed 31 times for 119 yards. So they had the motion of the running this week. The other week they had no running game that was really that good. They really missed LeGarrette Blount week 1. This week they didn't show that they did that, which opened the passing game up for Brady. Brady's passing game was there. He had time. The pocket stood strong, and they didn't know what to do, so they had to play man-to-man. Breeze and Brady were in that game, as I mentioned earlier. This was an incredible stat that I saw the other day, that these two combined have 922 touchdowns, 128,250 yards combined. That's the most in NFL history for 2 quarterbacks that went against each other. Think about that for a second. These are 2 Hall of Famers guaranteed, especially when their numbers are that high and these 2 come together this late in their career. There's a lot of Super Bowls there. There's 6 Super Bowls between those 2 players. Brady's got 5, and Breeze has got 1. 6 Super Bowl rings right there between those 2. But Breeze just couldn't keep up. He had good numbers that week. He just couldn't keep up with the way Brady played. Breeze had 27 for 45. He threw a lot. And he didn't hit as many as he could have. He threw a lot of times, though. It was 356 and 2 TDs. He had better showings, I'd say. Wasn't the greatest showing he's ever had, but he's had better. Brady came out just with a vengeance, and he couldn't hang with it. Their running game, still working on that. Mark Ingram was a high rusher there. He had 8 carries, 52 yards, no touchdowns. And Adrian Peterson again. He matched up with Mark Ingram and had 8 carries, but he only had 26 yards. Is Adrian Peterson just not the Adrian Peterson we know? Adrian Peterson's up there in age. I don't think he is. His name still has a vengeance to it, but he's like a Frank Gore now. People know that he's old. He's not as quick. He can't get in and out of his jukes as fast. Because Adrian burned himself up at such a young age, running people over, that he's used his body. And I think that has really hurt Adrian. And he can't do that now because the guys that are coming in the NFL that are playing defense are younger, they're faster, and they're stronger than he is. And they're in better shape. And he can't do that anymore. So now he has to try to juke them. And they're still being younger. They're quicker. And he can't get around them. So Adrian Peterson, I think, has lost that step. Do I think he's still going to have a couple breakout games this year? For sure. It's Adrian Peterson. You never know what he's going to do. The Saints, they didn't have much of a chance there when halftime even came around. It was 30-13 at half. So they didn't have much of a chance through the whole game. But they could have at least worked on stuff to try to figure out what's for next week. And they really didn't even do that because they scored 6 more points, 2 field goals in the second half of that game. So I'm not even saying they really worked on that too well. My takeaway is Brady. Man, if Brady plays like this the rest of the year, the Patriots could walk to the Super Bowl until they play against Denver in the Super Bowl, which I think could possibly happen. And no, that can't happen. What am I talking about? They're in the same conference. They're both in AS. The Saints' running game was terrible, as we saw, and it did not look good. They need to work on that. They need to figure out what's going to happen with Adrian Peterson, who's going to be their one, Adrian or Ingram. I think it needs to be Ingram. Ingram's younger. He hasn't proven as much as what Adrian can do in the NFL, but Ingram needs to get the start. He's younger, and he looks like a more reliable back there because you got a passer and Breeze. Breeze wants to pass. You need to have a runner that's reliable that you have to worry about. You don't have to worry about Adrian. So Ingram should be your starter. Leave it with Ingram. The next game I want to go to is the Cowboys in Denver. That was the game everybody was talking about. That was a big game. You know, you got young Dak Prescott and Zeke versus the defense for ages. I mean, Von Miller, that guy owns defenses. They got so many people over there for the defense. It's incredible. They probably have the best defense in football, if not ever, there in Denver right now. The last time Dallas lost by more than 25 points, it was Week 10 in 2013, and Tony Romo was their starter. They got beat 42-17. Was it because of where they were? They were in Denver. Might have had something to do with the altitude, but I'm not really sure. They definitely looked overwhelmed to say the least. Dak didn't have the time to throw, but he didn't have the time to throw because the Denver defense stopped the run. They held Zeke to pretty much nothing. He ran the ball nine times for 8 yards. He didn't even have a yard to run. I mean, they shut the run down, and then all of a sudden, they got away from the run because they got so far behind, and they forced Dak to throw the ball. Dak threw the ball 50 times in that game. He threw it 50 times. Wow, that's a lot of throwing in a football game. He completed 30 of them, but still, he threw 50 times. And he only had 238 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. You leaned on him too much as a young kid, and his running game wasn't there, his other star. If you don't have a running game, your passing game's not going to be there. Because Dez pretty much got shut down. He looked pretty well exposed. He looked like he couldn't do anything. The offense showed they were good, but if you put them up against a really, really good defense, they can be beat too. So they were overwhelmed. And the altitude might have had something to do with it because the ball flies a little different. I don't know that. But they were definitely overwhelmed by the way they came in there. Trevor Siemian, on the other end of the ball, though, for Denver, who plays offense, their quarterback, their 7th rounder out of Northwestern, is amazing. He's looking great this year, but you wouldn't expect a 7th rounder to be your starting quarterback. especially after they have taken the quarterbacks they've taken in years past. I mean, think about the ones they've got. They got Tebow with the 25th pick in 2010. And then in 2016, they took Paxton Lynch with the 26th pick out of Memphis. You would expect somebody like that to be your franchise quarterback. Instead, they got Trevor Siemian. Siemian in that game had a really good game. He threw 231 yards and 4 touchdowns with an interception. It's pretty good. 4 touchdowns against Dallas, who was believed to have a really good defense. I believe he looked pretty good in that game. Would I go with him as an elite quarterback? No, it could have just been a freak accident of a game. But his running back opened the passing game up for him in C.J. Anderson. C.J. Anderson had 25 carries, 118 yards, a touchdown running, and he also had 1 receiving. He opened up the passing game because of his running game. You have to have a running game to open the passing game up. And C.J. Anderson opened that up for Trevor Siemian. And then they have the defense. Denver is very well-rounded, and Dallas was overwhelmed by the whole circumstances that they went into there. And I was just blown away by how good their defense played against Dallas, knowing they were young and ranked that high. I mean, you would have thought they were going to play good, but I would have thought Dallas' offense would have played a little better. Brady, one of the masterminds who plays against that defense, is only 7-9 against Denver's D. Dak, I thought, would have came in there and gave him a little bit more because they haven't seen him as much. Brady, obviously, they've seen Brady a couple times, so they know what he's going to do. Dak's got that mobility, and so is Zeke. They can both quick and go. But Denver didn't step down for the young age or anything. They just came in playing, ready to go. Von Miller looked amazing. Akeem Talib intercepted a ball with almost no time left in the game. How much time was there left in the game? 53 seconds left in the game. He intercepted that ball, went 103 yards, and returned it for a pick 6. 103 yards. Wow. That's getting it. And the big storyline from that whole game was when Dak threw one of his interceptions, Zeke stopped on the play and just watched. Why would you do that? If you give up on that play, that shows your team how much you really care. And that hurts them. Me, if I was a teammate with that and I saw that, I would be upset. Is it getting more publicity than it should? Probably so, because he's Zeke Elliott and all the stuff going on. But still, you don't give up. And I understand players give up on plays, at least 1 or 2 a game. But it doesn't matter. If you're Zeke Elliott and you're a star, you can't do that, especially if the play's right near you. If you're 50 yards away from it, all right, I understand you gave up, you ain't going to catch it. But it was literally like 5 yards away from you. And you're one of the fastest guys, I'd say, in the NFL. You could have caught him probably, and maybe saved some yards and kept your team back in it a little closer. But instead, you gave up. I was pretty disappointed in that because Zeke is supposed to be one of the leaders of that team and did not do it. And then on the rushing side, as I said, he had 9 carries for 8 yards. That was the first time in 15 games that he's not rushed for over 80 yards. They shut him down. I mean, down. My takeaways were Denver's D looks amazing. They got a nickname, of course, they're amazing. A Legion of Boom, they're good too. Amazing. So they shut him down, which blew my mind, and it shows that Zeke's not as versatile and as good as a lot of people think he is. It shows that offensive line is not as good as people think it is. It also shows how good Denver's D is. That's my takeaways from that game. The other one, rematch. NFC Championship title game last year. Packers in Atlanta. Brand new open stadium there in Atlanta. Mercedes-Benz, $1.5 million project. Wow. Let me tell you something. It looks amazing. I haven't been in there personally, but I've seen the features of it. It looks really good. Halo board up top. That's sweet. I mean, you can see it from wherever you're sitting. So it looks really, really good. I like the way the roof closes. Put a lot of money into it. I think fans will be really impressed with it for years to come. I'm impressed with it, and I haven't even seen the inside of it yet. Matt Ryan looked good. Came back in and left off where he ended last year against the Packers. He threw for 252 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. He threw for 201 of those yards in the first half. So he only threw for 55 yards in the second half. Yeah, 55 yards. Their running game, still the best running back combo in the NFL. Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman. Coleman, the Indiana guy. Sorry, I had to say Indiana because that's where I'm from. Freeman ran 19 times for 84 yards, 2 touchdowns. Coleman ran 6 times, 42 yards, no touchdowns, but he received 1 passing. It's pretty good. I mean, the running game's there. Guess what? Running game opened the passing game up. They won the game because opening the passing up with the running. They looked amazing. Amazing. The Packers, though, on the other hand, they looked okay. Not real great. They looked okay. They are the only team in the NFL that does not have a legit running back. They have an interim running back that was drafted as a wide receiver in 2015, third round, 94th pick overall out of Stanford. He was a wide receiver. Now he's a running back. Ty Montgomery is their running back there. They don't even have a running back. That's why he's allowed to wear the number he wears on his jersey, because he's a wide receiver who moved to a running back. Aaron Rodgers, not the greatest day he's ever had. 33 for 50, still threw 50 passes. He's got the arm, he can do it. You have to rely on him because he is the guy there. He had 342 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 INT. When he threw those 2 touchdowns, he was the fastest quarterback to 300 touchdowns in NFL history. He passed Marino and Manning. He did it in 144 games. That's pretty fast, especially seeing that he's only had a few receivers there that are super, super known, like a Jordy Nelson or a Randall Cobb. That's pretty incredible that a man can do that with what he's got. It shows how big of a superstar Aaron Rodgers is in this game. Jordy Nelson left the game early. He hurt his quadricep, and it's not the greatest thing that happened to him. I think he'll be okay because he is their star right now, receiver, and that's what they need. They need to get him back on the field, and I think that hurt a little bit too because he is the weapon that you have to worry about on their offensive side of the ball. And with him not in there, I think it really hurts the Green Bay Packers, and I think it really hurts Aaron Rodgers for his throwing ability because he really relies on Jordy a lot. The Packers on the road are not the same team they are at home. When they're at home, 500 at Lambeau. Toss it up, they're going to win probably. But if you take them out of Lambeau, put them into a shootout where they have to score 28 or more points, 4-22. They don't win on the road, guys. They got to have the home field advantage, and they got to keep a team under 28 points. And playing against Atlanta, a team that averaged 34 points last year, it's going to be hard to hold them down to under 28 points. They didn't in the NFC Championship, and they didn't in this game either. So the chances of them winning that were not really that good. The Packers D, it's got to get healthy. It has to. Struggling. They look sluggish. They had 2 tackles missing in that game, which did not give Aaron Rodgers a whole lot of time to throw the ball. If they don't get healthy, it won't do anything. Same thing with the offense. You got to have Jordy Nelson back. He doesn't have his favorite target. How are they going to throw the ball in Atlanta? Man, Super Bowl hangover? I don't know. They look pretty good right now. Most of the time when you see a team that goes to the Super Bowl and loses, they don't do much the next year. They don't either A, do much in the regular season, or they don't do much in the playoffs. Right now, Atlanta looks really good. I would put Atlanta possibly going back at least to the NFC Championship game as of now, and I see them playing. I'm going to go with Seattle for now. So I see Seattle and Atlanta meeting there in that reason, and then you got 2 good defenses, and the only thing that has to happen there is Russell Wilson has to have time to throw the ball. If he has time, which he didn't have any last year, he's got a little bit more and a little bit more this year, they could beat him. So the NFC is still wide open. Even Dallas has a shot if they figure out how to do some things too as well. They can make it there. And Green Bay still has a shot, so don't count them out if they get healthy. Injuries in the NFL from this week. There were some big ones. You had Vic Beasley there in ATL. Pulled a hamstring. He's out for 1 month. Man, that's a big loss for that defense. Vic Beasley's a big leader there. He's out for a month. So we're going to have to watch Atlanta's D and see how that struggles for the next few weeks. Also, Greg Olsen, big loss here in Carolina. Tight end, broke his foot. He's out for 6 to 8 weeks, just had surgery. It's a big loss here in Carolina because that's one of his favorite targets. You have a bunch of guys here you can throw the ball to, But Greg Olsen was always a reliable, good-handed guy for Cam Newton to throw the ball to when they needed to get yardage or he was in trouble. So it's going to be a hard hit here in Carolina. So I think Devin Funchess is really going to have to step up now. Also, Corey Coleman, the wide receiver there out of Baylor for the Browns. He broke his hand. Man, that's bad. Especially when you have a young quarterback like a Deshaun Kaiser coming in who needs a really good wide receiver. And Coleman's probably the best wide receiver they have there in Cleveland. And he goes out with a broken hand. So now that young quarterback you're trying to develop doesn't have his favorite receiver or the team's best receiver to throw the ball to anymore. And that's going to hurt his development in being a quarterback, and it's obviously going to hurt his confidence in throwing the football because he doesn't have that guy there. Andrew Luck, out for a third straight week. Colts have already named Jacoby Brissett. Will start for the Colts this week. So Andrew Luck out again, 3 straight weeks. Man, what's going on in Indianapolis right now? Boy. With that, I want to segue over there into the NCAA football. There was a couple good games over there this week. But first off, let's look at the poll. A new AP poll came out the other day. Bama's 1. Clemson jumped up to 2 after their win over Louisville. Oklahoma at 3. Penn State 4. And USC is 5. We're going to talk about a couple of those teams there. First, we'll start with the Clemson game. Clemson versus Louisville. Clemson was ranked 3 at the time of the game, and they played against Louisville, who was 14. Man, Clemson kept Lamar Jackson in check. Their defense looked amazing. They kept Lamar. They took him out of the game. Lamar Jackson was pretty much irrelevant. I don't know what they did to do it, but they didn't. But they pretty much didn't let him run the football. He threw 21 for 42, 317, 3 TDs, and 1 INT. He rushed the ball 16 times for 64 yards and no touchdown. They took him out of his running element and made him have to use his arm. And Lamar Jackson is not a pocket passer. Lamar Jackson's record in the last 6 games is 2-4. 2-4. One of those wins came against Purdue. They tried to put him under center against Purdue, and that didn't last very long because they figured out that he's not that guy. He's got to be able to move. He's a mobile quarterback. That's who Lamar Jackson is. And they shut that down, Clemson did. The defense for Clemson shut it down. Louisville had no rushing touchdowns whatsoever. 0. They shut the rushing down, like 0. The total yards was crazy. Clemson had 613 and Louisville had 433. They just tore them up all over. Like offensively, it was nuts. Kelly Bryant, the quarterback for Clemson, he's good. Looks really good. And I really like how good he looks. And I really like what Deshaun Watson said the other day. Deshaun Watson said something about, that kid's going to be better than me. If this kid's going to be better than him, that's good. Because he looks really good. And this game here against one of the powerhouses in their conference, I'd say, he went 22 for 32, 316 yards, a TD, and no interceptions. He ran the ball 18 times for 26 yards, and he scored 2 rushing touchdowns. Yeah, they were short jogs, but a mobile quarterback, that's what you got to worry about. Vince Young did the same thing. And look what he did with Texas. So you got to have a mobile quarterback that knows when to use it, but he also has to have an arm. Kelly Bryant's got that. Does he have Heisman numbers? I don't think he's got Heisman numbers yet, but he's going to be a guy to watch, I can tell you that, because he's mobile and got an arm. He can do them both. Lamar Jackson is the same way, but if you shut the run down, he can't really throw the ball. He doesn't have the arm like you need to have as a quarterback. Clemson had just an amazing day everywhere on there. Their rushing for Clemson had 297 yards. They threw the ball good. They shut the defense down. And Kelly Bryant looked well. Louisville? No, they didn't look so good. They shut Lamar Jackson down, so they shut the team down. When you did that, it was over. ACC? Man, they're really hurting this year, the ACC is. They have one team that really is a standout now because Florida State's hurt their quarterback. So Clemson is a standout there, and they just walked through Louisville like they were nothing. So who do you really got to worry about in the ACC? Clemson. That's about all you got to worry about. So you might as well move them up to 2 or at least 3 because they're going to go right into the playoffs for the ACC. Another game we had here, this one here was pretty big. It was an upset. And it was one you had to worry about. for sure when you saw it on paper. But the ranking there kind of put a little twist on it. LSU versus Mississippi State. You had to really look at that one close to see that it could have been an upset. But boy, it wasn't just an upset. They throttled them. 37-7. I mean, killed them. It was the largest margin of victory for Mississippi State in 111 tries at that game. I mean, they just came in there with a vengeance and looked really good. Mississippi State also played at home. Ed Orgeron, who also was a coach in the SEC before that at Ole Miss, is now coaching at LSU. So he kind of knew what to expect going into Mississippi State. It's a different environment. It's tough to play there. It really is. Mississippi State's quarterback, Nick Fitzgerald, wow. The kid looked good. I don't know if he's a Dak Prescott good, but he looked good. He's a junior. He threw for 180 yards, 2 touchdowns, carried the ball 14 times, 88 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He had 4 touchdowns altogether in that whole game. Their quarterback did. That kid looked good. So he's mobile. He's got an arm. And he's got a good line there in Mississippi State. Am I saying he's going to be a Dak? Don't get me on that level. But he came in there against LSU, one of the teams that everybody believes was the second best team in the SEC behind Alabama, and they got beat by Mississippi State. Mississippi State jumped from unranked, 17th on the board. They're now ranked 17th because of this win over LSU. They're a good team. They're very good. Arius Williams, their running back, led the team with 146 rushing yards. So they even have a running back that could run. You got a quarterback that can run, he can throw, you got a running back who can run. Sounds pretty rounded to me. Sounds like Mississippi State could be a force to be reckoned with against Alabama. Are they going to be good enough to beat Alabama? Don't know that, but we can see. In the last 18 tries of this game, Mississippi State has won 2 of them. That's it. They've beat them 2 times in 18 years. So imagine how sweet that feels to be on your home against LSU, the number 2 team in the SEC, you believe, and everybody else believes in this country, and you beat them that bad. It feels good. I'm sure it felt good. And then to come in with the rankings and be 17th the following week and be undefeated still, yeah, you know you got a good team there, guys. So don't let anything pressure you down and don't think you do. LSU, they got beat everywhere. Everywhere. Their defense looked terrible. They couldn't throw the ball. They couldn't run the ball. They couldn't do nothing. Coach O did not come in prepared for that game. I don't know if he overlooked them or what he did, but they just were not prepared for any of that. Danny Etling ran for 137 yards. That's it. Or had 137 passing yards. I'm sorry, that was their quarterback. I got my guys confused here. It's crazy. There was only 1 touchdown that was ran for in that game, and it was Darrell Williams. 5 carries with 22 yards. That was the only points they scored. It was a rushing touchdown by a senior. That's nuts. And you're that good of a team, I don't know what to think here. Like, is Mississippi State a team that can go contend with Alabama, or is LSU that bad? I think it's a little both. I don't think Mississippi State's going to go contend with Alabama. I think Alabama will walk all over them. But I think LSU is not as good as everybody thought they were either. They're not the number 2 team in the SEC, and neither is Florida. Florida is a disappointment too, and so is Tennessee. Georgia, they're okay, but I don't think they're going to do that much either because they'll get beat by Bama like they always do. And Auburn, everybody says Auburn. Nope, sorry. Auburn's not the team you're looking for. That's just Auburn. The one of them all, though, that everybody had their mind on and watched. Texas versus USC, number 4. Sam Darnold. Oh, man. There's no words to explain that game. It was incredible. It was definitely the best game of the weekend by far. 27-24 in double overtime. Texas, an unranked school, comes in to USC Stadium. And it's the first time these 2 teams have played since the 2005 National Championship. USC had the series 4-0 according to the books. But the reason it was according to the books is because they were told they had to vacate the whole 2005 year because of the whole Reggie Bush scandal. So it should be 4-1. Texas should have 1 win, but they made them take that one away, so it's 4-0. Well, that's fine. It's okay. We all still know who won the national championship. The Horns. Hook 'em. Vince Young was in attendance, so was Matt Leinart. They were both there to see this game. It's pretty crazy. Speaking of attendance at that game, man, the numbers were astonishing. There's 84,714 people there for that football game. The NFL teams didn't even get that combined. The Rams had 56,600, and the Chargers had 25,380. I mean, a college game had 4,700 more people at it than the NFL games. Was it because of the kids knowing the players? Was it because the football was better? What was it? My opinion, the college football was better. And obviously this was a huge matchup. Sam Darnold proved that when he carried his team. He stepped up to that next level and showed who Sam Darnold is. There's only 3 quarterbacks that I think could step up to the level that Sam Darnold had to step up to in that game. That'd be Josh Rosen and Mason Rudolph. Rosen at UCLA and Mason Rudolph at Oklahoma State. And you might be able to put Josh Allen in there out of Wyoming, but I can't guarantee him yet how he would be against a bigger team like Texas. But those other two, I know they could step up and do it. Sam Darnold had 397 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. The interception thing's starting to come pretty familiar for Darnold. He's throwing a lot. But he's taking those risks to do it. And you got to have a quarterback that's willing to do that. And he's doing that. But he's getting the touchdowns and the results to do it. The last 2 plays in that game have to be 2 of the best plays this just happened this year in football. I mean, he had to hit a pass on the run, and then the next one that set him up for field goal range, he had to do a jump pass. He jumped up and threw the ball while in the air over the defensive line of Texas and his offensive line to get him into field goal range with 26 seconds left. Man, have you ever thrown a football when you jump in the air? It's not very easy, especially over guys that big who can put their hands up and they're running across the field at that speed. That had to be one of the greatest catches and throws I've seen this year. It was pretty amazing. Texas's D, though, they played strong, man. They played strong all day. They were on the field a lot. They couldn't get the ball moving real fluent there at the start of the game, so the defense was there. But they kept battling strong. They turned the ball over a lot, but they kept battling and battling and battling. They missed 3 field goals as well, and that hurt. They were down. They could have had a 9-point deficit there to split, but instead, nope, they missed 3 field goals. Well, with 45 seconds, that's when Texas took the lead. And you're like, oh, game's over, game's over. They got it. Well, Sam Darnold wasn't letting that happen because he knows how valuable he is to that team, and he stepped up and did it. Texas had a freshman quarterback in, and he threw for 298 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. In a big game like that, that was good. His offensive line gave him time to throw, and his receivers tried to get open. Was there much there? Not really. His running game was shut down, along with USC's running game that was shut down. Wasn't much running in that game. It was mostly air. You had to throw the ball out. There was a lot of interceptions and turnovers. It was a physical game, and this kid stepped up to the task. So Texas football's got a lot to look forward to if this kid is going to be a quarterback of theirs. USC, obviously, has got the kid to beat of all of them, Sam Darnold, and that's what won that game. He single-handedly put that team on his back and beat Texas. Did anybody see Texas winning this game? No. Nobody did. They just saw a rematch of a game that happened years ago that was going to be amazing. But Texas saw they could come in there and do it. They almost did. And that would have been an amazing upset. Everybody would have loved it because the Heisman Trophy favorite just got beat by Texas. And especially with all those people in attendance that are Texas fans or anybody who wanted to see an upset would have loved it. My takeaways from that were Texas's D was amazing. If their defense plays like that, there's no reason they can't win a lot of games in the Big 12. A lot. They can stop pretty much anything, it looks like. They look like they're just young, talented, big guys. I mean, they got guys on the line, they're 300 plus. They're just monsters. And if they play like that, no problem. Their offense, though, it's got a little chemistry it's got to work on. They got a young quarterback. They got some things they got to wean into just to make the team better. He's still learning, progressing. That offense is learning and progressing. So if they take the time in the year to develop, the next few years could be very promising for the Texas Longhorns football, and especially with that new coach they got. If he puts in everything that he wants to give for that town that he was raised in, that could be a really good program. USC, man, what do you say about them? They're in the Pac-12. They still got a couple big matchups to come up this year. You know, UCLA, they still got to play Josh Rosen. They still have to win the Pac-12. So do I want to put them in the playoffs yet? No. But they show that quarterback they have, Sam Darnold, can help them get there for sure. But if they have a bad game and it turns into a shootout where it's a high-scoring game and the defense from the other team can step up like Texas's did, they're going to lose. I can't tell you that that's what's going to happen against UCLA because obviously UCLA has a lot of points scored on them as well. So that game is just going to be an offensive shootout when those two play. And it's going to be who wants it more and then whose defense can step up at the end of the game. So I'm not putting USC into the playoffs yet. Do I still want to put them as a really good team in the country, probably in at 5? Yeah, I would as of now because nobody can prove they can beat them and they got a Heisman Trophy candidate favorite to win it. Heisman Trophy favorite just came out, speaking of Heisman, the other day. And Baker Mayfield's back on top. They put him as the favorite to win the Heisman. Do I agree with that? Yes and no. I agree with it because of the fact of he beat that big teams that he has beat, and he looked really well doing it. But I think he's too small. And I think he's going to find a way to let that fall apart for him when he goes and plays Texas because Texas D will look good against him. And I think Texas will shut him down, and that'll really hurt him. My favorite to still win it is Josh Rosen. I want to point that out real quick again. And we're going to go with him still doing that. He threw his first 2 interceptions this year against Memphis in a loss, 48-45. That's fine, but he still had a lot of yards throwing it. He had to throw a couple more passes that he was scared to throw than he wanted to. They were banged up. A couple people hurt for UCLA that had to bring in some younger talent. So, Josh Rosen, still my favorite to win the Heisman. Just wanted to let you guys know that. So, that's the NFL talk, NCAA talk for Week 5 on the Red Zone. I hope you guys enjoy it because I'm going to come back next week with Week 4 of college football and Week 3 of the NFL. And we're going to discuss and break it down for you again. Please tune in. Thanks.